Yes. Okay, first thing, we want to open up the meeting, 7:10. Also, we want to let everybody know that's here. Roxanne cooked some vegetarian plant-based taco pie with salad. So it's over there and it's waiting for you. Okay? So that's for everybody. Okay, we're gonna start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's our flag? Vern?
Oh, nobody brought the flag.
Right. All right, that's all I said. We need a flag to pledge. He's bringing it out right now. Okay, can everybody stand up so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all. Okay. I want everybody to know I was at home looking at the president's address. And if we had it here, I'm telling you, he was bringing it. He was definitely bringing it. So first thing we'll say that. The next thing is appreciating everybody for coming out on a rainy night. So we're gonna try to make this a nice, short, sweet meeting. First thing, Katie Porter, she was supposed to be here. They had said that she was gonna be here, but the scheduling, she's supposed to be in Washington, D.C. for the president's address. So since she's lost and she's not going to have her seat anymore, I think she'll be available for us to talk to in the near future. Yeah, that her schedule won't be so busy. Okay, so next thing, we want to. Do we have any new members? Anybody who haven't been here tonight? Are you a speaker? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and take care of this. Okay. Next thing, what we're gonna do, talking about everybody. This is the new year, March. People paying their dues. We need people to pay their dues. We're gonna have. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you introduce him when he comes up. But right now we're gonna bring up our treasurer to get a treasurer's report. Roxanne, she's passing it out right now to everyone.
All right. Hello, everybody. So today, we have some members pay their dues and bought some merchandise, and you can see that for our last month, we had deposits of $365. Also, you can see that they increased the price on the Google, but of course, that's going along. And then some pending payments that are right there, and the brochures that we had printed for the Black History Parade were paid, but our ending balance is $1,580.84. So I move to get somebody to approve it, or do I do that, or you guys do?
I have no that you approve it.
Okay, looks like it's approved. Okay.
Okay. Next, we'll have Mike for the approval of the February minutes meeting.
Well, I don't think I need the speaker. I think that our entire meeting, was Ashley Aiken, who, as a member of SOAR, or seemingly. Oh, really? Okay. Sure, sure. So, there we go, we're on, okay. Mayor Ashley Aiken came and represented Disneyland in their Disneyland Forward project. She's obviously working with Disneyland and moving Disneyland forward. We as a group usually have worked against Disneyland and would probably be against anything they might do. She did mention that they're opening bad weather shelters for homeless people. To our knowledge, they opened up enough room for 15 people, and there are 1,000 on the streets. Mark Daniels did ask about the Natalie Rubicava recall, but Ashley does not support a recall for her long-term friend that's received a lot of money from SOAR. Greg Diamond blasted Ashley about the call and her involvement. Then there was the treasurer report, the dues, and the Black Pride Parade announcement. And Black Pride Parade was great. Thank you very much.
Yes, you did. He said, did he say Black Pride? Yes, the Black history. Okay. And let me see. So we did that. And that was real nice that we did that. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do is get approval for the minutes of the last meeting. Anybody approve the meeting minutes?
I'm looking to.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right. So now we'll go ahead and are you going to do the report? Well, she doing the report on the.
He's gonna talk about dues and bids.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, the roster secretary. Anyways, I also keep track of the members that have paid their dues, and I can't emphasis enough how it's time to pay your dues if you haven't. So I think what we're going to do is possibly put some phone calls out next week or so just to remind people. I think I'm good, right? Is that it? Okay.
Okay, we're gonna have Burns come on up.
Hi, up until recently, I've been your vice president. That's another story. Just wanted to give a little report on how the election turned out. That was disappointingly low turnout for Democrats, as usual in a primary election. No, we all did what we could. For that reason, we were not able to take back the OC Board of Education, and our friends B. Mendoza and Nancy Watkins and David Johnson did not prevail. But on the other hand, the folks who are recalling two really bad school board members in the Orange Unified School District, which covers Anaheim Hills, they kicked butt. They got rid of Madison Minor and Rick Ledesma, who are like, you know, just like the people on the OC Board of Education. They're people that give all the money they can from public schools. They redirected to charter schools because that's what they're in for, the money, and they also are culture warriors that are against anything that makes them uncomfortable about American history or gay rights and things like that. So they did really good. I asked what their secret was. They've been working on this recall a long time, like a year. But he says that he thinks what did the trick was they had a big team of Spanish speakers that got all the Spanish speaking votes out in the last 2 weeks. And that's something we should think about. And hopefully our friends in Accord and our friends in Chispa can be helpful. Next time we have an election, we need to work with them. In the congressional primaries that we cared about, we unanimously supported Allison DeMichelis over Joe Kerr, but Joe Kerr prevailed. On the other hand, we got a good candidate going against Michelle Steele. It was Derek Tran. I always thought he was a lot stronger than Kim Nguyen, and that's the reason I had to resign as vice president, because I wrote how much better Derek Tran was than Kim Nguyen. But Derek won, and if we can, it's not too far out of Anaheim. It'd be great if we could get rid of Michelle Steele.
But I thought Michelle still got 58% of the vote. Doesn't that automatically end it?
No, it's a top two primary. So we have until November for Derek to beat Michelle, which is very important. She's one of the worst congressmen we have. And the fact I'm not vice president anymore segues neatly into, we need to nominate a new vice president. Is anybody interested?
I'll take the position.
But you are a secretary, you're a recording secretary. Well, I'm persona non grata with the county party. But any new blood, anybody want to be vice president besides Mike? Then I nominate Mike, and next month we're gonna have to figure out who's gonna take his place.
Yeah.
I nominate Mike Robbins. Do I have a second? Okay, anything happening on Zoom? Can't hear you guys. Is somebody, you should be watching their comments, because I can't. What's that? Oh, you talked about that. Come on, Rebecca. Rebecca's got a great idea.
Let's hear it, please.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to remind everybody that we have these pamphlets, and I'd like for everybody to at least take maybe a half a dozen. The goal is to try to grow the group, so we spent quite a bit of time and money on these, and so please help us. Thank you.
So, Ed, you're the parliamentarian. What happens when only one person is nominated? Do we elect him by acclamation, or do we have to wait till next month? It was in the email. If people read it, okay. So we'll hobble along without a vice president until then. And so I'm going to introduce our guest. He ran for assembly against, he was in the primary, it was the top two primary, and there were only two candidates. So of course he's in it, but we got to support him in the Anaheim Hills. And around that district is the 59th district. This is David Obrand. We met him at the Black History Parade. And he has an introductory song that we all need to sing.
I won't be doing any of the singing. Thank you, Vern. I've never been introduced by song. I think I missed some of the stage direction. I probably should have walked out as the song was playing, but that's on me. Thank you everyone for inviting me here. Hello, Anaheim Democrats. It's my first time here. If anyone read the newsletter and notices that I'm wearing the same shirt, I noticed that too at about 6:30 when I was getting the wrong directions here, which was my fault. I want to assure you of two things. Number one, I didn't wear this intentionally so people would recognize me. And number two, this isn't the only shirt that I own. This is the shirt I put on this morning to go to work. And I think that says a little bit about what my campaign is about. I am not someone who has been in the political space prior to this. I'm someone who works very hard at my job. I'm a deputy county counsel for Orange County. In that role, I've been part of our child protection unit. Prior to that, I was a litigator for California school districts throughout the state. And prior to that, I've been a litigator in a number of different capacities. And something I don't like to talk about often is my resume, because I don't think it gives much of an idea of who I am. My mother is an immigrant from Nicaragua, and she came here with almost nothing like so many other immigrants do. She came here on a travel visa. She stayed here. And from my mother, I get a lot of my drive, my motivation, my hard work, and really bravery. The bravery to take on a state assembly campaign without prior political experience. Now, am I qualified? Yes. I have worked in government law for more than 5 years. I've been a litigator on ballot issues. I now work, as I said, as a deputy county counsel under the Orange County Board of Supervisors in a political space. I understand the legal and political end of things. My father was a school teacher, and my very first job out of law school, if you call that, I was a volunteer attorney with the Orange County Department of Ed. And I unfortunately got to see much of the middle of Ken Williams' reign of that board. And it's really unfortunate that we weren't able to pick up those seats on the Board of Ed. And in fact, as Vern mentioned, I'm in a two-person race for the state assembly. And so I spent more time leading up to the primary trying to promote Board of Ed candidates than myself. Because to me, as the son of a school teacher, someone who's only attended public schools his entire life, I think public education is paramount to the success of the children in the state and the state overall. Thank you. And so that's where I come from. I grew up in a pretty blue collar neighborhood, hard work ethic. I was not a high achieving student growing up. I actually just recently learned last year that I have ADHD, and it's something that I've dealt with my whole life. And
We all do.
the primary idea behind my campaign is seeking and achieving equity. And I see public education as a key way to achieve equity. As someone who worked in child services, making sure that we have proper social services is a way that we achieve equity. And when I got into this race, the reason why I came here was I received an email from Philip Chen. And the email gave some polling about disapproval of Gavin Newsom throughout the state. That's how it was stated. And disapproval of the state of California overall. And this was just after the recall attempt on Gavin Newsom. And so I wrote to my assembly member about the misleading nature of those poll numbers and the fact that that's the type of misleading commentary that leads to people believing that elections aren't fair, that the will of the people isn't what it is, and it leads to things like January 6th. And sure enough, as Phil Chen is one to do, he didn't respond. And that prompted me to go look at his voting record. Phil Chen is someone who sits out about a third of the vote. He is someone that is not showing up for his community. And he's been there for 8 years. And I looked at my career and what I've done to get to where I am. And it's all about hard work, showing up every day, and being someone willing to put myself out there to fight for others and to achieve the things that I think will benefit most of us, if not all of us. And that's why I'm here. I also do want to speak a little bit more about those Board of Ed races. Speaking of equity, one issue we see in Board of Ed races is that there's no limit on campaign contributions. And that's something that I think is unjust. And I think political finance in general is an unjust nature for someone like me competing against someone who's been in the assembly for almost a decade. His fundraising is well established. He has money to put his name out there, and it takes a lot to take that down. And so I'm working every day to get my face out there, meet as many of you as possible. But what I really need is support and people to help me get my name out there. And so the thing I want to end with is gratitude. Because again, I'm someone that was not in any political space prior to that. And there is a good reason for that. My father had suffered with cancer for almost a decade, and that was my priority at that time. It's not that I wasn't interested in politics, but I do always prioritize my family. And so now that I'm here, I've been very fortunate to get a groundswell of support to become the Democratic nominated assembly candidate for state assembly in my first ever run in a political campaign. So thank you for everyone that has been able to support me. My family, my wife is originally from Anaheim Hills. My niece and nephew go to Imperial Elementary School. So to those of you who do live in Anaheim Hills, thank you very much for the support you've provided. I don't get to get votes from very many of you, but I appreciate all the support and whatever help you can to help me get my name out there. And it doesn't take me to do it. It takes a team and all of you to help me get to the assembly. Thank you very much. I live in Tustin, or Tustin. Not Brea. Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, if you want to do something in Brad.
Appreciate it. I'll hand you my card after this.
Well, do you, is there a problem with the for office as somebody, county, county employee, county, lawyer?
Not for running. It is an incompatible office without getting into too much of a legal analysis of it. I can't hold both positions at the same time. So if I am elected, I will be relinquishing my position as county council. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We should do the questions loud enough for the Zoom people to hear. We already, of course, have a supermajority, a Democratic supermajority in the assembly. And sometimes, like Mayor Tom Tate said, oh, we'll run somebody against Philip Chen, I said, and he said, well, can't we have at least a few Republicans in there? But is there anything you're dissatisfied with the current Democrat run majority, and how would the assembly be different with David Obrand in that?
I generally align with the positions of the Democrats in the assembly. I do believe I'm more progressive than many. I think one thing I would really like to push is a move towards social housing, which is kind of a newer aspect of publicly subsidized housing. I certainly want to, here's the reason why a Democrat matters in District 59, despite a supermajority. A big thing that assembly members are able to do is garner funding for their districts. And with Phil Chen in the assembly, that goes to Phil Chen related priorities. Whereas for me, the priorities would focus on things like housing, social services, education, and ensuring that we are protecting the citizens against attacks against the LGBT, different races, anti-Semitism, things of that sort.
What are Phil Chen's priorities?
Phil Chen's priorities are supporting business. He has a strange priority towards combating asthma in schools, which I fully support. But the same day that he proposed a bill to have extra asthma medication in schools, he also received a donation from Philip Morris. And so it's aligning priorities and ensuring that the priorities that I try to fund support us all and are not conflicted against who my donors are. Yes, sir.
Who's the politician that you most admire?
Well, the question was, who's the politician I most admire? Before entering the race, and the book that inspired me quite a bit was I Swear by Katie Porter. And Katie Porter and I don't always agree on every single policy, but what I really respect about Katie Porter, she's a single mother. She's someone that didn't come from the pedigree that you would expect of a congressperson. And nonetheless, through hard work, through her values, she was able to achieve that. And that same sort of drive, that ability to find resources and climb up a gigantic hill against rain and whatever other factors might bring you down is something I admire very much. Yes, sir. So in the first 90 days, my top 3 priorities, number 1 would be getting a housing initiative that actually addresses the issues of homelessness, including resources for drug rehabilitation, other social services to make sure that there's not recidivism into homelessness. Ensuring that all public schools receive proper funding so that all students can thrive. And I apologize for the pause. I haven't thought about this specific question, the first 90 days. You know, I would have to think about it a bit more, and I don't want to be disingenuous with my answer. Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank you for your candor and your stances. I just would like you to suggest that you wear the progressive badge with honor to try to help get Democrats a little bit more where they should be and not thinking of the word progressive as a bad word. I hear that more from Democrats than I hear from Republicans.
Certainly, and you know, I think one aspect that makes my candidacy easier for me in some ways is I'm not a career politician. As I've noted, I have a great job that I work really hard to get to. And one thing I talk about often in these types of speeches is policies matter a lot to me. But before I even get to policies, I talk about principles. And the principles of being a progressive is something I believe deeply in. Because, you know, without that, my mother wouldn't be where she is. I wouldn't be where I am. And one thing that kind of relates to the school board elections, progressives, a lot of us are progressives here. Progress is something that isn't momentary. It's always happening. To get progress, we have to keep working. And we saw a pretty low turnout overall at the primary, but we saw an especially low turnout for Democrats. And that's unfortunately something that hurt the school board, Democratic school board candidates, because there just weren't enough Democrats voting for them. And in particular, Nancy Watkins put on an incredible campaign, and she really gave Ken Williams everything she had. But unfortunately, because a lot of Democrats, they don't see a president that they're battling over like the Republicans, and there wasn't as much of a draw to come out and vote. And so that's something to keep in mind when we talk to our neighbors. We're always working towards progress, and every election is important, and we have to keep reminding ourselves, our friends, our family, to keep working, no matter how tough it seems. Progress keeps going, and it only moves faster if we all keep working towards it. Yes, sir.
Just one of your thoughts on this. I think not only you need to work on getting the Democratic vote in and the turnout better, but don't you think you need to woo the independents a lot more, especially in the primaries? Because in the past, independents have had a reason to take a Democratic ballot. And this primary, there was no reason.
Well, I think it does go back to your first point and wearing your progressive badge strongly, wearing your values strongly, and not vacillating on your positions. And I think Democrats as a whole need to put their positions forward strongly and not be afraid of them, because they are popular. We see it in this state especially, but we see it throughout the country. Democratic positions are the popular positions. And I can only speak for myself. I don't shy away from what my positions are. I don't shy away from progressivism. And I think more Democrats need to do that, because independents care about abortion, and they care about actual initiatives to treat homelessness. And the Democrats are the ones doing the work for those types of things. And so we just need to be more proud and boisterous about those values, those positions, and I think we will get those independent votes. Yes, sir.
You mentioned being county council, and I attend the county board meetings, I see Don Wagner just violating the Constitution, disrespecting speakers, and he goes in the news for borderline behavior, always having the rest of us, right? Do you feel like they're accepting your advice, or do you feel like they ignore your advice? Because some of these are really very simple decisions, and they're not making what you would just consider, the universally accepted truth as, and treating the public.
I do apologize because I'm currently a county council. No, I can't answer that question. Just because of my professional duty in that respect. So I appreciate the question. It's certainly a good question, but it's not one that I can answer. Thank you, folks.
We have a resolution we need to vote on, or discuss. A lot of people are going ahead and shying away from the Gaza resolution. And Vern wrote one, and basically all it's saying that from what we have concluded is that we want peace. Peace in the Middle East, peace on earth.
I didn't actually write it. Or that came with me.
All right.
Hello, Anaheim. Wow. So I don't know if any of you know me. My name is Mervet Judah. I've been really involved in Anaheim. You recognize me a lot, like a lot. I was so involved in Anaheim. I've been asked to run for office several times in Anaheim, and I'm like, oh, I don't live in Anaheim. I just love Anaheim very much because it's the first mosque that I started attending. It's my favorite one. Way back when, that's where I learned Arabic and how to write Arabic. All my kids went to Minaret Academy, which is the Islamic Institute of Orange County off of State College. I did a lot of interfaith work. That's how I started before I got into politics. I did a lot of interfaith work because I thought that would be the place to bridge the gap for Muslim community with other communities and hopefully maybe uplift the issue of Palestine. So those who know or don't know, I'm 100% Palestinian. I was born in Puerto Rico. And yeah, I know. And I speak a few languages, and like I said, I'm very passionate about Anaheim, and I've done the work for sure. I've probably done the work. Those who know me, like all right, like work with homelessness, everything you can, like multiple issues, district elections, so many. Proud, I love Anaheim. So this would be really great if this could pass here tonight. So let's talk about what's happened for the past over 150 days. My family's in the West Bank. Sorry.
Brian.
So my family's in the West Bank, and I didn't become Palestinian on October 7th. I've been Palestinian my whole life and dealing with what happens. Most of my cousins have all been arrested by the age of 7, 10 years old. They're grabbed out of their houses and put illegally detained by the IDF. We call them the IOF. Please don't be offended, but we call them the Israeli occupation forces. That's what we call them. And so, and then what's happening in Gaza, that stuff's still happening in the West Bank right now. Actually, I haven't been in contact with my family since October 7th in the West Bank because they'll get punished for my activism. And the Israeli intelligence is so advanced, they're able to make those connections. That's why I can't go over there even though I'm a US citizen. So I probably will never see the Aqsa unless it's liberated or unless something changes where they'll let me go. My grandmother Alia, and I'm sorry I'm giving you background because I want to humanize myself because I feel like as a Palestinian, I've been completely dehumanized for the past over 150 days. Like we're these terrorists. Just some of the names I've been called in the past 150 days are Nazi, terrorist, pro-Hamas, Jew hater, every name that you can think of, anti-Semitic, every name you can possibly think of. And I haven't publicly talked about it. This is probably the most open I've talked about it because I don't want to victimize myself. There's a bigger issue here. I want to stop a genocide in Gaza. Just to give you the impact, I have a friend. She's lost 450 family members in Gaza. Her mom visited Gaza 7 months ago. Her mom had not been allowed to enter Gaza by the Israeli government for over 20 years. So it was the first time her mom had seen this family. So this girl, Savannah, who is a lawyer in Louisiana, she calls me every now and then telling me who are the next family members that have died. And I honestly don't know what to say to her. I don't know what to say to her. Over half of those 450 are children. So I've reached a point, I've always been understanding of people's thinking that Palestine, Israel is a complicated issue. I have nothing against the Jewish community. I want to make sure you guys know that. And if you ever hear me say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So I've been chanting that since I was a kid. I have never, ever, ever, as God is my witness and the life of my 3 babies, I have never, ever thought of it as being an elimination of any Jewish human being. It has always meant liberation, and that when I go to Palestine, I can go anywhere I want, no checkpoints, freedom, equality, where Israel could be the greatest democracy, not only for Israeli citizens that are Jewish, but for people like myself, where I would have a Palestinian state and I could go to the Aqsa as many times. Aqsa is the Golden Dome, the one behind the Golden Dome. I can go there as much as I want and no one can stop me. Does that make sense? So going back to this resolution, like I said, we've been dehumanized, devastated. A lot of us I probably lost 10 pounds. I wish better reasons. I could have lost 10 pounds in other ways, but this is just like we feel guilty existing. We look at our kids and we feel bad. We go to the market, you feel bad because you're able to buy food and they can't. You take a shower, you're like, horrible. I can explain it to you. It's like survivor's guilt. It's survivor's guilt. And on top of that, it's like, I'm an American. I'm an American. And I've benefited so much being an American, so it's this weird, like, it's this complex relationship I have with myself right now where I'm like, I can't not love being an American because a lot of who I am and the opportunities that I have are from me being an American, right? But at the same time, my government is funding, furthering protecting the occupation and this genocide. And that's what it is. And I'm sorry if it offends anybody, but that's what it is. It's genocide and ethnic cleansing. Right now, over 2 million people are internally displaced. Over 35,000 people are dead. Over 70,000 people are injured. Over 25,000 children are orphaned. Over 90% of that is destroyed or uninhabitable. And Israel now wants to do a ground defense of Rafah, which is basically intense. Like, it's not normal. Let me tell you something. I don't care what's ever been done to me. I would never justify the collective punishment of any community. I wouldn't. And to me, Israel is so advanced. If they want to target people, they can. So, this resolution. So I've tried, in the DPOC, I have tried passing resolutions. I have. It has not been easy. And it's not because all my central committee members are not good. Actually, more than half are really good people. Some people get scared off, and then you have those of us that we've always been unapologetic about, unconditional about our humanity, unconditional about truly being progressives. And I think those folks that have stood with me in this very difficult time. So I'm going to keep trying. And then Vern gives me a call and he tells me that Anaheim Democrats want to look at this resolution that I put together. The resolution language is based on one that passed in Santa Clara. I did change some stuff, but pretty much the gist of it, that's what it is. And it's actually an AAPI woman who wrote it. And she's a delegate for the Democratic Party back in Northern Cali. And so I urge you to please support this. A ceasefire resolution is not anti-Semitic. Acknowledging that ICJ said that possibly there's possible acts of genocide is not anti-Semitic. Remember, you guys, regardless of religion, faith, wherever you're from, we are all brothers and sisters and descendants of Adam and Eve. All of us are. All of us are. And we can never, ever, no matter what it is, we can never compromise our humanity. We can never compromise our humanity. So I'm asking you, as a Palestinian American, as a fellow lover of Anaheim and somebody who helped designate Little Arabia, and you got, which a lot of you supported me with, and as a mom, so I can able to look at Selma again, and Aya, and a lot of you know my kids, Janine, you know my kids, and Rakan, or I could look at them where Selma tells me Americans hate us. She was telling me Americans hate us when the Muslim ban came out, and now she's telling me they hate everything about me. They hate me being Muslim and they hate me being Palestinian. Is that what you want my daughter to grow up to believe? I, alhamdulillah, all praise to God, I'm a woman who lives by hope. It's what keeps me going. It's what keeps me trying. I could be rejected 1,000 times. I'll get up 1,001st time and still try again. Because I believe in all of us, we have goodness. We have it. So anyway, please consider this, and I'm going to read the resolution. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so You have, I feel like you cut something out here, but. Is it
Um,
like,
Start at the bottom of the page.
So start- oh, I'm so sorry, okay. Bismillah, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, sorry, we say that as Muslims. A call for immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and provision of humanitarian aid. Whereas we recognize the Holocaust, Nakba, and forced displacement of peoples with ties to the Holy Land and attempts to erase their histories. The 17-year closure of Gaza, which continues Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel, which resulted in the killing of 1,200 Israelis, Israel's 4 previous bombardments of Gaza, and the Dahiyya doctrine of disproportionate response in civilian areas, and we witness cycles of dehumanization, violence, and trauma. That the ICJ ruled on January 26th that Israel has committed plausible acts of genocide. Since ruling, Israel has killed over 3,500 Palestinians. That's just since and this is like, their numbers are off right now because this is like probably a week off, but whereas since October 7th, with over 34,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza, 40% of them children, 2 million of them, the 2 million of the 2.2 million population made homeless, 90% facing death by disease, injury, or starvation. 50% eminently so, with Israel continuing to attack and block delivery of food, water, fuel, electricity, and medicine, an active ethnic cleansing in progress for which the US and Californians will be culpable for, having provided the right-wing government of Israel with billions of dollars in unconditional military aid and weapons made by California-based companies. And with the Biden administration, despite outcry from 700 staffers and appointees, violating its own stated policy to protect civilians from war crimes and vetoing numerous resolutions at the UN, so far it's been 3 times, for humanitarian ceasefire. And whereas hostilities in the region have fueled a rise in bigotry and hate crimes against Palestinian, Muslim, Jewish, and Arab residents in California and the US, and the ongoing mass violence in Gaza has garnered Israel widespread condemnation internationally and outraged many US voters, and related hostilities are being escalated in other countries in the region, making us all increasingly unsafe. Therefore, be it resolved that the Anaheim Democrats Club calls upon President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, US Senate, our congressional members, and leaders to do everything in their power to bring about an immediate and sustainable ceasefire. Let all humanitarian aid into Gaza and safe release of hostages and illegally detained minors and prisoners on both sides in Gaza and occupied Palestine, like my cousins. Therefore, be it resolved that be it further resolved that we urge policymakers and the White House to condition US military assistance to Israel on preservation of Palestinian human rights, to redirect many billions of dollars of overall US military aid toward humanitarian aid, life-affirming services, education, healthcare, and diplomacy, both here and abroad, and to press all parties to create a framework for a lasting peace that gives all in Israel, Palestine, equal citizenship, rights, and human rights, fosters people's self-determination, statehood, democratic participation, and economic opportunity, addresses unjust displacements, and strives to interrupt and reverse this cycle of violence, mass human suffering, and traumatization. Thank you so much. Please consider supporting it when there's something happening. People often say, like during the Japanese internment camps or the Holocaust or the civil rights movement, what would you have done? Or during slavery, what would you have done? Well, what you're doing right now is what you would have done. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Mr. President.
So we should, we have discussion on this? Any questions or suggestions? Yeah. Did you want to say something, Greg? Well, come up.
I'm interested, first of all, in knowing, am I the only Jewish person in the room?
No.
Who else? Okay, I hope I don't offend you. You also? Okay. My reaction to Mervet's draft is that it's probably a bit weaker than it should be. And I'm saying that from my position as a Jew, because Benjamin Netanyahu and Itamar, I forget what his name is. Ben-Gurion, right. And they are literally allies of Trump. They literally want to make it hard for Democrats to win the next election. And I'm not viewing this through Democratic lenses, especially so much as anti-authoritarian and pro small d Democratic lenses. Biden has to understand that Netanyahu is his enemy and is his party's enemy and will try to take him down. And I don't know if anything can or should be added to that, to what you've written, Mervet. But I will tell you from my perspective, when Netanyahu hears that Jews like me, like those others in the room, are becoming targets of people's disdain, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because they feel that we must be supportive of what Israel's doing. And I'm a supporter of Israel's right to exist. I don't, you know, I mean, to me, the tragedy of the Middle East is that there's right and wrong on both sides. But Netanyahu is our enemy. As Democrats, as Americans, as anti-Trumpers, as people who love the Constitution and our system of government. So if there was a way to work that in, or maybe we need to have our own second resolution later or something like that.
Just to give you a little bit of background,
Mhm.
my initial resolution that I did back in November was a much stronger one based on how that community come. But then in that one, I dumbed down a little bit. And then I actually had some Jewish folks that are up.
Come up so people can hear you.
So just to give you kind of my journey. So I had approached the Democratic Party of Orange County in late October to get them to just to adopt HR 786. So I went to legislative committee, I was blocked there. No discussion, it was agendized and I was blocked. Then after that, what do I do now? I'm not gonna give up, can't give up. So I saw this resolution, this amazing resolution that passed in Alameda County that I was a part of. And I didn't draft all of it, but they included me as a policy. Could you think about this? People from Alameda County, here's all this work that I'm doing in all over Southern California, especially in Orange County. And here I have these folks from Alameda County reaching out to me because they respect my work and they understand our policy and they want to hear my voice. 300 people got to speak on that resolution. It was a beautiful night. I didn't think it would pass. Other Jewish people like yourself that are not okay with what's happening helped make it pass. So I was inspired. I said, okay, I'll take this, redraft it. I'll make it much softer because it's not going to work in Orange County, and tried to push it through as an emergency resolution because I felt like that's the only way I can get it passed. And people just kept dying. Honestly, if you told me on October 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th, Mervet, this is going to last 100, I would tell you, no way on earth. No way. Like, that's how surprised I am. That's most of our people, right? So point is, I put it together. They pushed it out. They pushed it out to a special meeting. They think they need to do more research. It was voted down. Okay. Then a month and a half later, I tried again, this resolution that Vern decided to choose out of the resolutions that I tried, because he's like, man, this is really soft. I can't believe this will pass. But just to give you a little bit of background, when they pushed it out to December 4th, I actually went and softened that resolution. I took out 70% of the language that the people that felt triggered by it took out. And I didn't take out occupation, but I took out like the numbers. I took out, there's something about occupation and you know, certain, even mentioning the deaths that triggers people, which I can't take out the deaths. Those are the numbers and they're probably worse than that, right? Because we have like tens of thousands under the rubble.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then I said, okay, I saw this resolution. I said, this is not exactly what I would want as a Palestinian. I don't feel completely seen, but you know what? You have to start somewhere, right? And so I saw this, I thought it would pass, and that's why I came here. But if you want to make this stronger, that would be my honor as a Palestinian American. But you get it? Like, I feel like I'm walking on broken glass, and I don't know who's who anymore. I have broken relationships with folks I've been friends with for over 10 years over this, what's happening in Palestine,
Well,
because I'm shocked.
I'm gonna make a suggestion.
What I would like to suggest is that we do pass this resolution as written, but that we come back next month and that we put together a resolution to what this means to us specifically as Democrats. And because I got to tell you, I have a much more positive view of Biden than most people do, than most people involved in this do. I know because
Heartbroken, sorry, but I feel
yeah, no,
completely
I understand. But for
and I
me,
want them to-
the only president that I've seen do anything similar to this is Jimmy Carter, and most of that was after he left office. I would like to see Biden send American troops in as peacekeepers and tell Israel that if they do anything to the American troops who would be mixed in there, that we would consider it as an attack on us, which it would be. But that's not gonna pass here. But I think what we need to do as Democrats is to speak out to Biden and say, Israel is able to do what it's able to do because of its lack of accountability. And it's time the extension cord that makes their war machine run extends all the way to Washington. And we have to be willing to pull the plug. But I'll try to work on something like that for next month. But for this, I think it's great.
I worked for the Department of Labor for like 25 years. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My entire family works in every single different agency there is. And I just have a recommendation, which is the last paragraph, be a little more measurable. It's so, you know, in the sky, from my point of view, that the practicality of making it and seeing whether it happens or not, it's a little beyond the reach.
Are you talking about like referencing the UN resolution that talks about two-state solution, or what are we talking about?
Very last paragraph of your resolution.
Okay.
We will see that this and this and this happens. It's wonderful to care about that, of course we do. But I'm just saying, as a government type, that you might want to think about how are we going to judge that? Who's going to prove that we've done that?
Put the word want in there, we want to.
Can't put
I
one.
don't- I'm just-
But I hear you. You're saying more like tangible terms of execution and where you can see it.
Here, that was my initial reaction, unless you were reading it, that's my still my.
Thank you so much. Yes.
I just want to make a comment, because this never gets talked about criticizing the military practices of Israel. And first off, they did not need to bomb the whole place before they moved in their people. Because when they bombed the whole place, they killed, the civilians, but the people that they supposedly were going after were in the tunnels for the most part. And they knew that. And of course they knew that. And they found a place that had one of the highest population densities in the world and just leveled it. And so, big surprise, there's just a huge amount of death and destruction. And much more, they could have actually had a somewhat more peaceful approach. They could have brought in food and water and given it to people who would cooperate with them, whole neighborhoods. Here we are, and they didn't do anything like that. They just wanted to make things as bad for the Palestinians as possible. And they acted that way, and it was actually, you know, it created a lot more deaths, not only of Palestinians, but also of the Israeli army, which now fights all the way along, whereas if they come in, and of course, five people who were shooting at them, actually shooting at them, rather than just leveling neighborhoods, you know, there would have been a bloodshed, but not nearly what there is, even on the Israeli side. And this doesn't really get discussed. They just take it as a given that Israelis gonna take its revenge, and how they do it is how they do it.
Just naked terrorism.
Go ahead, Wes.
I think it should be noted. Regardless of what side you're on, any ceasefire is going to preserve Israeli life as well as Palestine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's going to be an act of peace.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, because we feel like we get creative by saying, some people, for some reason, some people are hearing ceasefire as being anti-Semitic or being unilateral. So, you know, this happened in Santa Ana recently, but like where they'll say, I'll prepare people when because I've gone to like 30 cities easily, not more. And that's not including universities and boards, because I'm trying to, you know what we're trying to do, right? Congress isn't listening to us. Our president isn't listening to us. The US Senate's not listening to us. So we're trying to amplify our voices, because when Mervet or Rashad or Muhammad or Luis or whoever it is says ceasefire, it doesn't matter. But when a city or a school or a board does, you're amplifying the message that, hey, look, you need to listen to your constituents. And you guys know, right, that like 70% of Democrats across the United States are for a ceasefire. So it's kind of undemocratic that we haven't done one already. But yeah, like people hear ceasefire as being Hamas keep going, Israel stop. That is not the case.
And we'll be the first Orange County club.
Yes, you will. That's a big deal. And you know, it gives me, it's honorable because Anaheim, I've been doing stuff with you guys since Rakan. Rakan is now 18, since Rakan was 3 years old. That's when I really could say I was super active in Anaheim, like everywhere, lost pregnant, so all three of them. And so to think that this is the city, let me tell you something, I feel more home today in this room, and I've never come to one of your dumb meetings. I think, no? Oh, you know, I did, I'm lying, back in the day. But like recently, like in the recent years, in the recent 5 years, I haven't. I felt safe here. I haven't felt safe in spaces that I have been in for over a decade, contributed to various causes, financially, text-wise, advocacy-wise, and you can testify to that. Every freaking case, I mean, build bridges between the Muslim community and our Dem party and Arabs and Palestinians. And I feel isolated, honestly, completely isolated. I don't get how it happened, because I've been told that people like me have created divisiveness in the Central Committee. I can't explain to you how awful it's been. So I want to thank you, regardless of what happens today with this resolution, for making me feel safe enough to really just open my heart and be able to talk to you guys of kind of what it's been like. Yes, sir.
I agree with this, and then I guess come back to the revision. Like to suggest myself that pointing out that Netanyahu is an indicted criminal like Donald Trump is, would not be a bad thing, because that's who's behind it,
Yeah.
obviously. And then the final thing is, we need to remind ourselves of this fact so that we can remind others. Jews and Muslims and Christians all pray to the same Father God of Abraham. That's a simple fact. We all pray to the same Father God. So we need to put away the differences and find that one thing that we definitely hold in common.
But I want us not to conflate this as a religious war. I think the worst thing against anti-Semitism is the conflation with anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and conflating this into a Muslim-Jewish war. So I want to make sure that that is dangerous for Jews, is dangerous for Muslims, dangerous for
How is
Palestinians.
it dangerous? That is supposed to defang the whole thing. There isn't anything between Muslims and
There isn't, but they come.
Christians, because we
You're absolutely correct, but the way it's conflated, that it's that way. Muhammad wanted to speak
Well,
up.
and we need to re-educate, though, that's what I said, we need to accept that fact, so we can share it with others. If they're misunderstanding, it's our job to make it.
You're correct.
So I haven't talked to you guys in about 4 or 5 years for some of you, so it's good to see some familiar faces and to talk to people that I haven't worked with and haven't been in meetings with, haven't occasionally sparred with for a long time. But what I can say is I can speak to our values being the same. I think that we're still the same people. I think we still share the same values. And I think that a lot of people in this room consider themselves progressive. Okay. There's people in the Middle East that, or in any place of the world that run the gamut, from both sides of the political spectrum. And putting aside ideology, I think on a human level, there's people all over the world that have different levels of empathy. Okay. And the way that they walk into human interactions is either seeing sameness in others or seeing difference in others. Okay. There's a lot of people in the Middle East that consider themselves progressives. There's a lot of people in Palestine that are progressives, that are not militaristic, that are moderate, that want peace, that want to live in peace alongside their Jewish brothers and sisters. Extremism is not the norm among Palestinians. And I feel like I need to speak to the actual conflict. As much as I believe that a lot of you have been very gracious with your comments and your support towards Merved and towards this resolution, I feel like I need to speak to the actual conflict because I know that this is not a unanimous issue. I wanted to make it absolutely clear that this conflict, the idea that anyone should have been killed on October 7th, is not something that a majority of people believe in Palestine. It's not something that a majority of Arab Americans believe. The majority of Arab Americans do not believe that Israel should be destroyed or that Israelis should feel like they should be in danger or that they should be killed. And the reason why we're advocating for a ceasefire, as people have mentioned, is because we want to see less killing. This is not something that you could ever reasonably conflate with anti-Semitism. How is it anti-Semitism when we are saying we should put aside our differences and find a way to live peacefully alongside as we have for centuries? This idea that Muslims and Jews have some sort of cultural divide, that's a fiction. That's a fiction. That hasn't existed throughout history. That really hasn't. There have been more instances of centuries of peace across a multitude of countries across different continents where there is no I can tell you as somebody who was raised Muslim, I'll give you guys some examples. We are taught to eat halal, right? Which means that it's food, especially the way that meat is butchered, the way that the food is prepared, has to be done in accordance with religious values. But if you cannot find halal food, you can eat kosher food because they're what are called, the Jews are what are called people of the book. This is how they're referred to in the Quran. There are stories that I was told as a child, okay? The Muslims believe that all of the people in the Bible, the prophets of God, the messengers of God have delivered this message, right, from the same God, and that there was a final messenger named the Prophet Muhammad. There's a story that is told to us as kids that the Prophet Muhammad had a Jewish neighbor who didn't like him and would leave trash in front of his door. So one day he sees that his door is clear of trash. So he gets worried for his neighbor and he finds out his neighbor is sick and he brings him food and medicine. Mervet, have you heard this story? Have you and I ever talked about this story?
I never knew she was a Jewish woman, but I knew the whole purpose is that you should always be kind and try, and you should never compromise your humanity. That's what I always took it as. Because he missed her. Basically, he's like, "Where is she? She okay?" He checked on her. She had passed away.
It is for the people who are not progressive. Because I said we all have as part of the human condition, we have different varying levels of empathy. We have very varying levels of the ability to see sameness rather than difference. Okay, they're the people that are responsible for violence, the people that are escalating conflict. they're not progressives. They don't represent the majority of the people. And they don't, certainly don't represent the majority of the people that have died in Palestine, that are being punished for the actions of the far right. And the far right among the people in the Israeli community, in the Jewish community, the ones that are emphasizing difference rather than sameness, the ones that see Muslims as people that hate them. I don't see it that way. I've never felt that way. I've never in my life have been taught to be anti-Semitic because I'm Arab or because I was raised Muslim. It's literally not part of our culture. The reason why the Jews were displaced by the Holocaust, was it Muslims who committed the Holocaust? I thought that was a bunch of Europeans that did that. And was it Europeans that sent them out of their countries across Europe? Or was it Muslims?
And just highlight Palestinians are Christian too. I don't want to Christian brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
There's a guy on Zoom, Joel Block, who wants to speak. I'm gonna make that happen. You want to speak too?
Sure, let me speak.
So I think that I've tried to make my position clear on this, because unfortunately, this has become an issue where there's unnecessary division. And I just want to emphasize sameness. And I want to emphasize that this is the progressive thing to do. This is what progressives in the Middle East, whether they're Jew or Muslim, that are calling for a ceasefire want. And this is something that we should stand for based on our shared values. Thank you.
Or on Zoom. First of all, I was a representative of this club for the Democratic Party of Orange County. But because I supported the administration's position on the initial attack by the terrorists in Israel, certain people got me thrown out of that position. Will I be thrown out of this club today if I make my position clear on any? Certainly the
what happened
argument.
is you said let me repeat. I'm
Oh,
glad.
go ahead, say it.
I'm not gonna fight with you. So I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't file anything against you, just to be clear and put this on the record. At no point in time did I ask for your removal. I was shocked when you put on the chat that Gaza needs to be wiped down, just like the Nazis were. That's what you put on a chat. So how dare you? And I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't care if it comes out there, because you know what? I never faced you. I never faced you. Everyone asked me who it was that did it. I never did
Thank
anything.
you, let me state.
Okay,
what I wrote.
so I'm not asking
You
for
know,
his removal. It's a free country.
In response to any war, America does certain things. And so I wrote specifically when they were bombing Gaza, that America leveled Japan and Germany and then rebuilt great societies. And that worked out. That's exactly what I wrote. And of course, in a heated, they didn't wipe out Japan and Germany. This is a great discussion now. This is where we're gonna heat it. Let me say too that when there was a terrorist act, let me turn this around totally. Kenneth, let me turn this around totally, because this is my opinion. Ben Franklin said, if an Indian injures me, does it follow that I may revenge that injury on all Indians? And I agree with that.
We live on native land.
One,
We live on stolen land.
one more, there's a guy on Zoom who wants to speak, and I'm not sure how to make that happen, but, after that, Steve has moved that we call the question. Joel Block says, I strongly support the resolution and urge its passage. I do so as an American Jew with relatives in Haifa, as someone who knows that it's up to me to support my cousin's prayer for an end to this war and this series of wars. The issue is whether we favor peace over war. Okay, thank you, Joel. And Steve has on Zoom called the question. Do we? Okay.
There's a lot of, I could read a room, okay, and I can see that this is probably going to pass. And I just want to say, anybody who sincerely feels that they want to vote no, you should vote no. I would much rather have a non-unanimous resolution that shows that people disagreed about things, but that it was sincere, than have a unanimous one. I would love to think that everybody's convinced. That rarely is something that happens. I'm not gonna look down on anybody who isn't convinced, but so, Mike, if you feel like voting no, you should vote no, and nobody should, as long as you're being sincere, that's fine.
All right, I believe we're gonna call the question now. I move that we adopt this resolution as it is and maybe bring back another one next month, an additional one. Yes, Denise?
The resolution that we not rush this. I think what this lady had to say was very important. It sounds like it just need a little tweaking. And then we would zip it up and make the vote. You said you're welcome. I really
No, I will, but they were saying that they bring other language, so for me, like. The genocide is still happening, and for some place in Orange County to take a stand finally, like, without like dirtying up a resolution, because I could show you some of the ones that we've done. This would mean a lot, but it's up to you at the end of the day. It's a free country. You guys do as you please.
I would like to hear her consideration and wording.
Well, I'd have to go through that last paragraph. It's gotta be some kind of concrete, measurable, solid, you could say, yeah, we can look at that, we can see. But the way that's written, it's almost like going to church and saying, look, we believe in God. Frankly, that's the way I reacted. As an
Yeah, but the opportunity, freedom is
subject
yeah.
matter. I'm just recommending that just those last couple of sentences be a little.
There is.
Like how?
There is.
Right.
Well,
This is right.
That should have been better
Yeah.
to say around it.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah, what can it, what is the president? Yeah.
So what we gonna do?
I think,
I'd like to add something, which is we would try to pass it tonight, that whomever wants to vote and whatever changes, even touches that it needs to be toward the end of it, it would be for the next month instead of waiting for this another month till they, vote on it.
And I second Seaman's motion. Do we have? Oh, yeah, you're right, because only Migs who have paid the dues get to vote.
So I'm gonna call out the names of people that are sitting in the audience and those that are on the Zoom. I need for you to yay or nay the resolution. So we're gonna make it public. Phoebe, yay or nay?
Yay.
Denise Barnes? Is that a who, what?
Nay.
Okay, Kenneth? Roxanne? Joe? Pat, you're on Zoom. Kathy? Dave, you're on Zoom. Alexis, you are on Zoom. See me? Wesley? Brian Kay? Manny King? Vincent Kovacs?
David Durant voted yay.
Okay, okay, fine. I'm a yay. Ed Lopez? Brenda, you're on Zoom. Stephanie? Jeff? Okay. Daniel, you're on Zoom. Janine? Mike? Amy, you're on Zoom. And Steve White, you're on Zoom. Okay, so. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there are a handful of people that are out of state on business, and so we're gonna give them 24 hours. So I'll go ahead and tally up the votes. but pretty much it looks like it's a yay. But I'm gonna give the handful of folks that have reached out to me, they wanted an opportunity to vote. We wanted to go 72 hours, we're gonna go 24. Okay. Okay, all right, so thank you. Yes? Thank you.
We won. Humanity won.
Yeah, because first thing, let me say this. That's why I went ahead and I said, first thing, anything to peace on earth. Okay, that's the bottom line right there. People don't understand that we are not too far away from a possible World War III. And we don't need wars. We need peace. We need prosperity in our land, in our earth. We need people to come together. We don't need people to fight each other. We don't need to succumb to hate. We need to go ahead and promote love. This could be very special. So this is why I'm going ahead and I'm saying this, and this is why we brought this up. When Vern went ahead and brought to me, the first thing I said is, you know what, if it was up to me, it'd just be plain peace, no more bombs, no more. We come together, we talk, we come together, the minds, and we make things work, because that's what we're supposed to do here on earth, love each other. So we've already went ahead and did that.
Thank you so much. Can I just say thank you on behalf of,
May God be with all the people of Gaza. This is in their name, and my friend Savannah, who lost 450 family members. And of course, my grandma, Siti Alia. Thank God she's not seeing what's happening now. But inshallah, God willing, one day I will see Palestine free and see myself living side by side with a Jewish, Christian, and myself as a Muslim, as a Palestinian. Freedom, equality, and peace and opportunity for all. Thank you.
Okay, we want to thank you. You know what? I want everybody to know this is probably the most discussion that all of us had as a group with anybody discussing this conflict. So I'm glad that we were able to go ahead and take it and discuss it and act intelligently on it. Because you know what? We're all different, but we're all unique. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Okay. Next thing we have is Disneyland Forward, a report, just an update. Go ahead and let us know what's been going on with the
oh my God.
Janine or Stephanie.
Primal and our best person with the machete chops his finger open.
That's great.
Idol. So Q just gave it to her.
I'm Lee Robbins, and this is Stephanie Mercadante. And Stephanie especially has been working nonstop 24/7 on the Disneyland Forward issue. The main issue is the closure of Magic Way. It turns out through documents that Cynthia Ward has received from the city that there is no traffic study at all. No traffic study in the EIR based on the Magic Way. So we've been out there. We've been picketing in the mornings at the intersection of Walnut and Magic Way to raise awareness. There is a response. Yeah. There is a meeting on Saturday put on by Norma Kurtz, which she's billing as a community meeting to discuss traffic on Walnut, Ball Road, Catella, but nobody's supposed to talk about Magic Way. Even though the potential closure of that street will greatly impact the traffic that is there. So right now, the planning commission meeting, I believe, was going to be on Monday, but there is no agenda. It was supposed to be posted by 5, and Cynthia Ward was at City Hall at 5 o'clock to see it, and there is no agenda. yet the city earlier had built it. So Disneyland Forward will be putting on their presentation again at the Planning Commission supposedly on Monday at 5 at City Hall. We need as many people to come as possible. In the front page article on the Register today, Bob Iger is quoted as saying that Disneyland will increase by 50%. They want to build a new avatar world. It will destroy the quality of life of everybody in that area. Every resident in that area, their quality of life will be destroyed. So, what time was it posted?
It wasn't posted.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
yeah. It's a-
Cynthia did
It's
screenshot.
a violation of Brown.
I don't.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
The one thing that's about this is it's very selfish. Disneyland, Joe Hott, do you remember his quote? That it was Channel 7. He said, oh, let's just close it. Let's just go ahead and close it. Most of the people that use Magic Way are Disney employees. And that way Google and Waze won't direct people through there. And the reason why they direct people through there is because it's the least traffic way to go. So I have done over periods of time, 1 o'clock in the morning, still take Magic Way to Disneyland Drive. 3 o'clock in the morning, same thing. It's the least traveled way. So why would we give away a street for general fund money to put out the residents? Why do they need to do that?
Well,
It's a,
more than that, real bad traffic on Ball and Coachella, it's gonna make it a lot worse.
yeah, and you can't,
Whether they're,
Yes,
a car is a car.
they're talking 15 million more tourists a year, in addition to what we have currently, as well as 13,000 more employees. So that volume of cars, I don't understand why they would think to close a public street when the traffic is already so heavy in that area.
Who know anything about.
I mean,
And it was a mitigating
Yes.
factor. They used to have Cerritos go all the way through to West. They closed it off and to be able to do that, they had to open up Magic Way, which is really Cerritos. Now they want the city to sell it.
that was in the 1996 agreement,
Yeah.
I believe. That for them to block off Cerritos at Walnut, they had to build another throughway.
So Disney can't take it, but they can buy it.
I mean, on
It's up
every,
to our city to protect the residents, and it's gonna be interesting to see who votes for this project, because they're voting for a massive corporation over the residents. I have over 700 signatures, and I think 400 are just about 400 is just from the area residents. And they didn't know about it and they don't want it. And I didn't even touch everybody. I was spending 15 minutes with each house because they didn't understand it. They didn't understand what was coming for them.
The other thing too is that city council, obviously, at least 6 out of 7 have all been bought and purchased by Disney money. Those city council people are the ones who appointed the planning commissioners. So we also have a planning commissioner who was a city council person who's received well over millions of dollars from Disney. So the fact that some of these people are even allowed to vote at all is crazy. There is a planning commissioner, a different one on there, who is very
yeah, I don't know.
on social media on Nextdoor, supporting this Disneyland Forward, yes, openly. And it hasn't even come up for their vote yet.
This is so fascinating.
This project started under Harry Sidhu's reign.
Yeah.
With the people, some of them involved, maybe not in the same position. So it is continuing and we have to bring it to light.
Who will not write her name down? Sounds of everybody.
the agenda, can you tell us what's gonna be discussed on Monday?
Yeah, I can
What we-
read it off. There you
Hi, folks. So for the actual planning commission on Monday, we actually have 2 items. The Disneyland Forward will be the second item. And on the item itself, the attachments, it has a staff report. Attachment 1, which is the draft resolution. So that, I don't know if everybody- that's the alluding to the 17,000 pages, which is the EIR report. report. The kind of the technical thing about EIR reports, and this is kind of a weird one because in this case, right, since Disneyland came in here in 1955, it's existed since then. In the 96 agreement, it became what we would consider year-round destination, where prior to that, from the 50s onto the 80s, it was what's considered much more of a seasonal thing. What's become interesting, at least for Disneyland here, is I think the status point is 60 or 70% of the residents or people who go to Disneyland live within 60 to 70 miles. So it's the greater Los Angeles, Anaheim, Long Beach metropolitan area. So it's the IE, Riverside, Orange County, North San Diego, and LA County. That's kind of really tricky because you combine those 5 counties and that's a significant population just anywhere in the world, let alone your kind of the purchasing power in terms of like your quality of life, earning potential is a lot higher here than anywhere else in the world. So when you're doing the CEQA, you can't, for the planning commission, it's a little tough because you can't revert and you can't talk about, oh, well, the traffic is going to increase. We know that because it's existed, but it has to be like a technical argument to that point. And that's kind of the big, I think kind of one of the issues with the project itself. It's a little bit conceptual in nature. So it's necessarily what they're asking for is 2 things. It's a land use transaction. And then the second portion is what we would call like
That's crazy.
like a fast track system for approval, where it's meant just through administrative, through staff, with no public discussion or like recourse in the sense of, because currently the way, if any amendments to the 96 agreement has to go before the planning commission for specific plan amendments, and then continue on to the council for any other jurisdictional oversight where the commission doesn't have. So there's checks and balances to it. The streamlined process would allow where the staff just has administrative approval. And when it comes to planning development, it's mainly do the T's cross and do the I's dot, right? It's not anything of, you have your own individual opinion on a development or an item that you can go beyond the scope per se. So that's what's being requested and what's being presented essentially what we're voting on is the CEQA resolution, so the updated environmental impact report, the draft general plan amendment. So this is to the 2 specific plans, the Disneyland specific plan, which is basically all the land use for the Disneyland property, and then the Anaheim resort specific plan, which incorporates all of the Disneyland property, and then all the hotel, convention center, and the relatively resort area.
What to do?
The third attachment is the city council ordinance approving of the Disneyland resort specific plans, zoning and development standards amendment. The 4th part is approving the Anaheim resort specific plan and zoning and developmental standards and amendment. Attachment 5, the draft city council approval zoning code amendment. So this includes the structural height limitation and Anaheim commercial recreation area. So the key thing here is height map. So on the East Coast, skyscrapers are skyscrapers. Here, relatively speaking, even our tallest buildings are not relatively that tall. In Orange County, I believe the tallest building is right outside Irvine Spectrum. It's those glass towers, and I believe it's 32 and 35 stories. So not really that tall. And I say that because when it comes to economic development or commercial development in this case, where there's a concept called floor area ratio, it's commonly shorthanded as FAR, and that's what determines the economic development and output. So in this case, right, any building between 6 stories to 1 stories is typically going to be built by sticks, so wood framing, which is a lot cheaper. As soon as you get to 7 stories and above, all the framing has to be made out of steel. So the cost dramatically goes up, but also too, the developmental cost and the profits also go up. So it's a dramatical increase. So in this case here, we're also approving the height limitation to any of the Disneyland specific plan. So at this case, as of right now, I think it's like 150 or 120, which is a height map. But if this gets approved, from my understanding, they can change that at will as long as it meets the administrative process. And that's kind of the case for everything here. The fixed portion to it is the draft Anaheim Resort Public Realm Landscape Program Amendment Resolution. I believe that goes into the whole business improvement district in terms of the resort in the Anaheim area. So that's where, I don't know, I don't think it's TAC increment financing, but there is an assessment which collects funds in order for them to do the street paving, the lighting, and all the stuff that you already see there. That's just an amendment to it. The seventh attachment is the draft Anaheim Resort Identity Program Amendment Resolution. That's a continuation of that program as well. Attachment 8, the draft development agreement resolution. This is what we would call the draft development agreement. So it's not a full disposition and development agreement because there's nothing being constructed on and presented to us. So like with the Angels deal, there was phasing of construction. So X amount of years, this has to be built, the X amount of years that has to be built. Here, the only performance metric is if Disneyland doesn't invest 1.9 billion in 10 years, they give the city $5 million. And that's it in terms of performance metrics for the developmental standards. The attachment 9 is the applicant's letter of request, which is what they're requesting. Attachment 10 is the public works discretionary exemption approval. Attachment 11 is the summary of amendments to the two specific plans. Attachment 12, the draft planning standard detail, which is the tree and shrub selection matrices. Attachment 13, consistency of the project with the general plan. Attachment 14, the Disneyland Resort Project and Anaheim Resort Specific Plan project objectives. Attachment 15 is the applicant community outreach summary. And attachment 16, the public correspondence. And then finally, attachment 17 and 18 are the Magic Way traffic redistribution and the vicinity map and aerial. So it's a lot of things and it's a big project. And I would say, in terms of scope, I think it's bigger than even what the Ducks or the Angels are doing, but it's all relative because it's all theoretical, because what they're asking for is a land use transaction and not necessarily presenting actual development of what they're building. In comparison, in the 96 agreement, they were part of the development, the disposition agreement had them building what was going to be called Westcott, which ended up being Disney California Adventures. So in the 96 agreement, there was performance metrics and standards saying after X amount of years, they need to have this open. After X amount of years, they need to have the second gate open, so on and so forth. This current deal doesn't have that. And that's at least a little bit alarming to me because I think it was communicated earlier too. On the OC Register or LA Times, you have the CEO saying, hey, we have plans to do X, Y, and Z at the parks here, but nothing's being presented onto this project, which is supposed to be the future of this development, which also too is a little bit complicated as I've already kind of communicated, but it's when the 96 agreement was done and set in stone, it was a 40-year agreement that went until 2036. So we're still in that process. And there's still, I believe, 2 fixtures of that agreement that still have to be filled out. The main one that's still existing from the 96 agreement is the East Overlay Parking District, which is east of Harbor. So if you guys see where all the new hotels are being built up Clementine, so right up north of Garden Walk, there's supposed to be a parking structure. They're supposed to be built there before 2036. Realistically, they haven't started on it and they probably won't ever get to it. And if approved, there is no matrices that forces them into building that within the next 10 years or 20 years. That can go on until 2064, or if that deal gets extended in the future. So that's just a small gist. I could answer questions or we can have more of the communication. I know it's a lot, but kind of. So like so like when Gene Autry and Clementine, those original plans were set up in the early 90s. And to this extent, like I wasn't even born when these plans were around, but that's, what I'm trying to say is like, we don't necessarily have great matrices of making sure development actually occurs once we approve something. And that's typically what we're seeing in a lot of cases with even kind of some of these fast cash developments that we're seeing. So it's a little bit alarming to see how fast we're going and especially how complicated this is. That I know with the fact that the vast majority of people would not be able to regurgitate that, or even proponents of the project won't be able to regurgitate that. Well, I mean, that's, yeah, I think it's clear when people don't read that, but yeah, I think it's also right. I think for our party or our club or our democratic beliefs, there should be some type of a process where it doesn't necessarily have to go this fast because it's all theoretical. Us approving it or not approving it doesn't stop any jobs from occurring or not occurring because there's nothing in the plan. Whereas per se, right, the Angels deal and the Ducks development had developmental standards or performance metrics saying, you know, this needs to be built within a certain amount of time, this needs to be built with a certain amount of time, and if not, there's legal repercussions and legal recourse that the city could take. Here, it's kind of, hey, if Disney doesn't, we don't do $1.9 billion of investment within the first 10 years, here's $5 million. And then here's $15 million for housing now, and then 15 later, and then 8 million for parks. I think the big issue with all of this is that the net present value of that money and how that money will be calculated later is not one-to-one. As an example, right? I know we all like baseball, but look at the Dodgers with all their baseball players and whatnot. The reason why they're delaying payments because the net present value, as an example, the net present value of $100 today is worth more today than $100 at any other given time in the future. So even if values or monies are contributed to the city, it's not really kind of apples and oranges here. It's not like one-to-one where, oh, hey, that kind of makes sense. We're getting this and then we're getting that. And it's a lot of transactions for a very quick process where, again, the vast majority of people probably don't understand what's even occurring here.
Or what they're voting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just 1 second. Part of our objection to this plan, Louis touched on it. Can any of us go to the city and say, I want approval to do whatever I want on our property? No questions asked.
Who it hurts.
No approval. Who cares what the neighbors think? I want to build from the sidewalk to the back wall on either side.
Maybe.
That is what Disney is asking for.
Maybe. If they don't want to, they get out of all the other stuff they're on the hook for.
Yes. The other thing is that Mervette and I fought a campaign together, along with other people in this room, Measure L, in 2018 to get a living wage for the Disney employees. At that time, there was a survey done by Occidental College. At that time, it said that 10% of Disney employees were homeless. Over 60% were food insecure. Here we are, 5 years later, 6 years later, and can you imagine the amount of Disney employees that are homeless? I hear they're sleeping in the parking structure in their cars, if they have a car. And who doesn't have a car is sleeping with their friends in the parking structure. And Disney has lost in court on the subsidy issue, and they still will not pay the employees. They will not pay them their back wages. Right. So the way I look at it is you had this mega billion-dollar corporation. They don't take care of their employees. We subsidize their employees. We subsidize their employees with housing, which they pretty much refuse to build. 15 million will build 20 units. We subsidize their employees with food. We subsidize their employees with rent control, and we subsidize their employees with housing. So we are subsidizing Disney, who wants to do this to the neighborhood. Disney World is 50 square miles. That is the entire size of the city of Anaheim, including the hills. You cannot have that in the middle of a residential area. You cannot have 3 decades of construction 24/7 where people live and go to work and go to school. It can't happen. So we need your help. Everybody, please. We need you to come to the planning commission meeting on Monday, 5 o'clock, city council.
At City Hall, during the last city council meeting, they were asked everybody's arguing about Magic Way. Can you take that out of the project? And the city, I think it was Ted White.
Yeah.
Somebody said, one of the Anaheim officials, well, yeah, it could be done, but we'd have to go back to the drawing board. It would be a process. So how can they have two things? They have no plans. This is a hypothetical project, but they need Magic Way and it would devastate the project and they'd have to go back to the drawing board. So they know what they want and they just don't want to tell us.
The other thing is too, is you can look at the city's Facebook posts. They, and Disney, they say themselves, the very first thing, they only want the ability to build on their property. Not one extra square foot. Yet, they start off with the lie and that sets the tone. They want the Magic Way. And that is not their property.
And that Magic Way was a mitigating requirement, irrevocable, because we let them close Cerritos. So here it is. Now they want another thing. Next is going to be Disneyland
Yeah.
Drive.
Because that's also in the EIR, but they're claiming they don't want it anymore, but they are not taking it out of the EIR.
There was never a traffic study.
Yeah.
Walnut cannot support the traffic that they're going to be dumped on. They think they're just going to take Wall and Catella. They're going to go and try to find their little workarounds.
What did the traffic study, the man said he did it with his eyes, and 99% was Disney.
Yes.
That's what he did from his eyes, he did the survey.
Well, first it was 10,000 cars drive down Magic Way. Then it's not used. Then it's used only by Disney employees. Now, if that is blocked up and they can't use that street, they're going to go to Catella or Walnut and Ball.
And we have emails from between city staff where the number of cars using that street on a daily basis is quoted anywhere, depending on which staff is writing the email, anywhere between 3,000 cars a day and 20,000 cars a day. So, okay, Greg, and then.
We gotta make it quick. It's almost 9 o'clock.
Okay. Sorry. You mentioned, is there a court order for Disney to pay that money?
To pay the money for.
To pay the money to back on?
Yes.
There's an actual court order.
I believe so, yes.
You know, are they, is it local 11 behind them or?
Well, local 11 was the one who pushed forth Measure Out.
Essentially, the point is.
They sued.
If you have a court order,
Yeah.
you can do what's called a debtor's exempt for Disney, where you can subpoena all of their records.
Well, Cynthia would have all that information if you want to talk to her.
Well,
about
and
that.
Cynthia also did a request and she requested specifically for a traffic study and they did not turn any over. So on the record, they had no traffic study done. It was not turned over. If they did it, they didn't turn it over.
I'll have Cynthia call you, Greg, because she knows the service. Okay,
All right.
thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll see you in Monday.
Okay. I want to give all our speakers, can we give all our speakers a hand? Okay, because we tackled a couple controversial subject that nobody wants to even talk about. We did it, and we did it in a humanly way. Okay, and we come together. Now we're dealing with the Disneyland, which is, excuse me, is the power brokers, and the power brokers do not care about nothing else but the dollar. Bottom line, the dollar. Okay, anybody have announcement to make? Because we're getting ready to bring this to a close. Go ahead, Wes.
Okay. Anything I say from this point forward does not represent the opinion of the club and is solely my own. My birthday is June 4th. And to recognize this, the Anaheim City Council has made the district tree representative recall on June 4th. So I appreciate that. So if you live in District 3, please get out and vote yes on the recall.
Last thing too, we don't have candidates for District 1 and 5. Which is something that we're, next meeting, we probably will go ahead and talk about. Vern, did you want to bring up something? to Talk about?
We have the pamphlets that we made. Rebecca had this idea that she already said it. Also, I got to apologize to Greg Diamond. He actually is a member.
Okay, all right. Okay, at this point, we're gonna call the meeting. It's at 8:57. The meeting is over with. Thank you. Everybody.